Well, a very, very happy Thursday here, and welcome to another episode of the TNC Sports Talk. My name is Justin. Today is a special edition on the podcast. It is September 11th, 2025, as we take a moment and remember the nation's tragic accident almost 25 years ago, be 25 years to next year, of 9/11, where planes crashed into the Twin Towers in New York, attack on the Pentagon. And, you know, this is just a moment in history, especially during my time now. I was 6 years old, getting ready to go to school, lived out on the West Coast, getting up, getting dressed, just like my normal routine. And, you know, um, like I said, being 6, I was just excited when my parents say, "Hey, you don't have school that day." And I'm just like, "Oh, great. We could get an extra day off, get a chance to relax, play, maybe catch up on homework." I think I was in kindergarten at the time, um, or in first grade, whichever order. But, for those who are maybe a little bit older, I think it hits different. I was across the country, like I said, in California. I didn't know what, 9/11 meant at the time. I think I learned more and more each day, compared to those who, one, lived old enough to know about the incident, old enough to remember detailed oriented, step by step, minute by minute, compared on to those who probably were born past that time. All I know is that it changed the face of America, moving forward for the last 20 plus years. The way we travel, the way we do things. The one thing I could take from that perspective when I hear stories going back to that time is how our nation stopped in its tracks for a moment and came together. It didn't matter who you are, it didn't matter what skin color you were, it didn't matter how old you were, how young. We came together as a nation. And moments like that, I think, with how our nation has developed and how society has developed over the last 20 plus years, it's always, for me, something to look back upon and ponder and reflect and just remind us of who we are first. Um, there's so much political and opinionated standpoints going around over the last several years, especially in these recent months, and taking all the current events that have accumulated over the past 48 to 72 hours. you know, um, I think our nation sometimes need a moment to remember, that our freedom, has been fought and has been earned each and every day uh, since our declaration. And if we, in order to keep it, we have to be united. A famous quote that I like to stand by, and when it comes down to an overall viewpoint, is by one of our greatest presidents of all times, our 16th president of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. As he goes on and he mentions that a house divided does not stand, a nation divided does not stand. Um, and I think it tests volumes to what we can see today, where people put their ego in front, put their personal beliefs in front, and it surpasses the fact that we're all humans, and it's the fight against humanity that we're really battling. And so moments like this, like when we get a chance to remember all the men and women who lost their lives going into work simply, it's just another day at the office for most. Um, People were affected. People are still affected. No one asked. Those people didn't ask to die. Uh, Police officers, firefighters, first responders didn't ask to lose their lives that day. It wasn't needed. And, like I said, we came together as a nation, just like some of these other events in recent years that we come together on. And I think today, in today's time, it is important that we come together. So, um, on our show, we dedicate our show to those who lost loved ones, who lost their life, those who lives were taken short. Not particularly just in this incident 24 years ago, but in recent hours, in recent days, and recent weeks and months and years, whenever a tragedy has taken place, we want to, take the moment and remember, and hopefully one day, sooner than later, that we could come together and let all that just bypass us and forget about all the negativity and just focus on the positive, and that's that we live in a great nation, that each and every one of us loves to wake up in the morning and have this freedom that is given to us. So our show is dedicated to that, remembering those from 9/11. And I got a pretty exciting itinerary, at least I like to believe it. Heading into week 2 of the NFL, we'll share where we stand among our week 1 predictions. If you guys are following along, we encourage you guys to leave your comments in the comment section on our YouTube page, to share who you think are going to win each and every game. We'll go ahead and give our predictions on week 2 and our matchups. I'll share the games that I'm looking towards seeing this weekend around all the sports. If you are a Cincinnati fan, I don't know how it's happening, but you got to find a way to get excited. So the Bengals obviously had and picked up their first victory of the year last week against the Cleveland Browns, a game that they should have lost, but they won. And so now they come home to Paycor Stadium. They take on the Jacksonville Jaguars, 1:00 kickoff time. And we hope that last week was a fluke, right? The offense falling flat to the defense being spoiled. We want the defense to be spectacular, but their offense falling flat. We hope that it's a fluke. This is also a game that I think it's fair to say on this program that it is a episode to episode phrase. Games you should win, you need to win. So we'll talk about the Bengals. But if you're you're just a Cincinnati sports fan. I mean, you got Kentucky, I believe, that are 0-2. I have it somewhere here in my notes. You got Cincinnati, that's 1-1. Ohio State's 2-0. Kentucky's 1-1. The Reds are now just 2.5 games back, 2 games back in the wild card. And I think it just goes to show that earlier this week, right, being 4 games back, being, I would have even ruled ourselves out of the playoffs permanently, right? We're heading into San Diego. We got to find a way to beat the Padres. They win game 1 in extra innings. And I'm like, okay, there you go. Well, that's it. I mean, we could look on to off season. What's next? And they come back and they take the other 2 games of the series. They end up taking the series, and now they head into up north to face the Athletics in a series that can really define, this back end stretch of if the Reds can make it to the playoffs. I will still testify. These last few weeks are going to make a statement of where the Reds are at right now. And so far, what I've noticed is that we're in the dog days. We're tired. We're fatigued. We're banged up. We're hurt. I get that. We're not used to playing October baseball by any means stretch. But we're building a young organization with the guys that we have right now. We've added some insurance to it, And my indication is that we're not quite there yet. I will still stand by that. I feel like we're inexperienced. I feel like we're not completely chemistry oriented among everyone. Um, but what I do like is the tenacity, the fact that the Reds are not going to give up, even though they had a bad stretch. And let's face it, they faced some really good teams a couple weeks ago, including the Mets, including the Dodgers, including the Blue Jays, and it was gruesome watching them. And so I can't wait to talk about that. So we'll dive into our sports and our predictions and all that fun stuff. I got nothing for wrestling today. It'll be strictly baseball and football for you. But before we get started here on our program, I like to take a moment and kind of explain to you just give you an update of what we can expect heading into the weekend. The first thing I want to start off with, if for those who are following our gaming content, this is primarily for you listeners. So I appreciate your support. I appreciate your commitment and watching our wrestling WWE 2K Universe mode. I appreciate you watching our MLB The Show franchise series. And I appreciate you watching our Madden series. One thing I want to make it just clear is just so that there's no misunderstanding, is that when I give out those polls for people to vote on who they're going to win, for example, tonight, it's Thursday Night Football, Week 2, Washington Commanders and the Green Bay Packers. I have a poll releasing, and it's going to, you could choose either the Commanders or the Packers. This is all based upon the NFL Madden 26 season, okay? The video game. The franchise that we've set up, we're playing as the Cincinnati Bengals, but we're playing primetime games, important games, and games that I feel are going to get the most attention. We publish those throughout the week to add extra content. When we do that, we give up polls. So if you've been following our NFL Madden series, and it says it right there in the title, NFL Madden 26, and then it says regular season week 2, then it says Thursday Night Football, then the Commanders versus the Packers and gameplay. It's a clear indication that what you're voting on is what's being presented on our channel. And on our channel at 8:15 tonight, we will have the Commanders versus the Packers. I don't want you to misconceive that, because this is nothing related to the NFL season. We don't do much of any post of who we think is going to win during the NFL season, during the baseball season, during the NBA season, or during the NHL season. This is strictly game-oriented that is connected to our channel. So I have gotten comments, and I'm not upset or anything. It doesn't bug me. It's just, I do my best to clarify it, and I don't want to deceive people. But the clarification is, it has nothing to do with the reality world of the sports. That's why we come on this podcast. That's why we share our thoughts and our opinions, and that's what we do. Sometimes I personally feel, maybe this is just a preference, that I am coming across a little bit aggressive, maybe a little bit, rude or disrespectful when I correct someone, trying to inform them that, hey, I know that the Commanders aren't 0-1 on the season, but this is what's according to our game. In the franchise mode, what you can see is they are 0-1. The Giants beat them last week. I know that's not reality, but that's what the record is. And so I get those corrections. Oh, well, so-and-so is not in the playoffs, or so-and-so has this record, or they beat this team last week. I get that. I'm not against it. This is all according back to the game. So I just want you guys to understand that when I post a baseball poll or a football poll, it's not related to the regular season. And as a matter of fact, the title of the poll clearly indicates what that what game it is, where is it coming from, and then there's a description. I've even included this year the standings, each and every team to our Madden series, so you guys can stay up to date and follow up on it. But I want to make sure that is just clarified. So, as you guys have, I've been able to, since our last episode that we've talked about here, I've been able to update and upload everything getting up to Thursday Night Football, which is great, which I know Raw and Backlash has kind of been delayed. I'm currently working on some shorts. I'm trying to work on this weekend's content. I just have two more or one game. I have the Jaguars and Bengals game to play. I also have SmackDown and main event to play. But otherwise, all the other content's done with. I'm just working on downloading them, importing them, and then publishing them. So I'm working on that tonight and tomorrow, hopefully to get done no later this Saturday morning. Now, everything's up to date. I'm behind on shorts because I can only have one video upload at a time. And trying to pull content from videos is kind of behind me. So I'm trying to find time, possibly tonight, get some shorts up this weekend for you guys to enjoy. I know that's kind of where our biggest viewership has landed. But as far as tonight, we have tonight's Thursday Night Football game from the NFL Madden 26 video game. Commanders, Packers. Commanders enter in 0-1, and the Packers enter in 1-0. Tomorrow, we have two things going on. We have SmackDown at 8, which is primarily our WWE King and Queen of the Ring tournament, which is going to be our main focus point on Raw and SmackDown over the next 2 weeks. So be sure those are the content that we're playing. So I think, for example, Randy Orton takes on Shinsuke Nakamura tomorrow night. I also got, I don't know where the paperwork is, but then I also got, but I got a couple King and Queen of the Ring matches. I don't know where the paperwork is on that. Then main event is Saturday, and then we have another week of that. Now, for those who watched NXT last night, we have our spring breaking coming up here in just a few weeks. I know I'm working on match developments there. And I just encourage you, do me a favor and check out the descriptions, especially on these wrestling shows, because we also are doing the WWE draft. You can see in the community chat, I'm uploading rounds. We've actually had round 4 earlier this week. I posted today. And that's going to be taking effect after our King and Queen of the Ring PLE. So our second event tomorrow night, it's going to be the Dodgers and Giants at Oracle Park, MLB The Show 25. That game's already played, just got to put together. Come back on Saturday. We have two things headed for you. We have main event. Then we have our Saturday afternoon game, Yankees, Red Sox. As they, I don't know if they're battling for postseason yet, quite frankly, but I feel like that was just going to be a good game. Trying to find matchups. I told you guys earlier this week that my goal is to get ahead of the baseball series, so less games, get ready for postseason. Hopefully, start that the next week or so I can stay ahead of that game series. So that's what we're working on for baseball. And then football, we have the Jaguars and Bengals at 1:00. We have Sunday Night Football, Falcons and Vikings. And then Monday Night Football, I know there's 2 games, but we're choosing a later game because it's a AFC West division rival, Chargers, Raiders. That's going to wrap up week 2 of the NFL. Right now, I'm trying to minimize our workload for the weeks as postseason and baseball comes away and as PLEs continue as we head towards our SummerSlam and season 2. Right now, right now in football, you're going to get is whatever Bengals schedule there is. You'll get, if Bengals play on a primetime, event, then you may get an additional game. And in the upcoming weeks, you expect to have that early morning game. So we will add more content as baseball winds out. But as of right now, that's kind of where we stand at. So be sure you're subscribed. Be sure you have those notifications on. I'm trying to maintain and stay up to date with everything. Don't miss a single thing. And hey, don't be afraid to comment and let me know your thoughts and your opinions. And let me know what's going on. But that is what's going on our channel, TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. All right, let's dive right into the sports. I want to just, let's get right into baseball. talk about those Reds, because earlier this week I counted them out. I really had to. I was very skeptical about them. You know, they fell back 2 positions. They were behind the Diamondbacks. Giants are up there too, kind of fighting for that wild card. And I was just, man, I just don't know if they have what it takes. And they head into San Diego. I know the San Diego Padres didn't play well. They got swept by the Orioles last week. They beat the Rockies on the road. But man, I just felt like, hey, we're gassed out. We're gonna tap out here and just kind of cruise control. Hopefully become, finish the season off over 500. But they picked up Wednesday night's victory, 4-2 Tuesday, 2-1 on Wednesday. And now, as of today, the Reds are just 2 games back to where they were, behind the Mets, outside looking in the National League wild card. You got Milwaukee, Philadelphia, the Dodgers, comfortable leads. Got the Cubs 7 games above, Padres 3 games above the wild card spot, and the final wild card spot. And then you have the Mets right there. You got the Giants also 2 games back. The Diamondbacks are 3.5 games back. And the Cardinals are 4.5 games back. But why is this emphasis really, the expectations really high? It's how teams are playing this year that I kind of feel, depending how the Reds could pull off the rest of the season, they do have themselves, I'm going to say maybe a 60% chance of making it to the wild card. Now, I haven't looked into the Cardinals' schedule. I haven't looked into the Diamondbacks or the Giants' schedule remaining of the year, but I'm looking ahead. Any team above. And who are we currently fighting right now? We're currently fighting the New York Mets. In the season series, we have the number above the Giants. So if we finish off even with the Giants, we have their number, we go first. That's good note. The Mets are 3-7 in their last 10 games. So are the Padres, by the way. The Mets have lost 5, and they have an option with the Philadelphia Phillies. Later, you have a dance with the Phillies tonight. 7:15, maybe a game that you want to tune into on a Thursday night if you're a Reds fan, because the Reds have off. They're traveling today. But the Mets are down by 5, have lost 5 straight games, and they're about to get swept if the Phillies could win again. The Phillies are 7-3. They're on a 3-game winning streak. And so, if there's any motivation there, we want the Phillies to win. I'm looking at the Padres. They lost the last 2 games. They haven't been playing well. They're 3-7, and they're back home for the week. They actually begin a 4-game series tonight against the Colorado Rockies. But if we have an opportunity to make a postseason, the battle's going to be with the Mets and possibly the Padres. What we've seen in a series alone, 3 days, was the Reds maybe being counted out Monday morning to now we're back in it, and all it takes is momentum. And a 3-7 record in a wild card spot is not the greatest momentum moving forward. I'm looking at the Reds' remaining schedule. They got 3 more against the Athletics. Then they go to St. Louis for 3 more, which I know that's going to be tough. They come home next weekend for a 4-game series with Chicago to face the Cubs. 3 more games against the Pirates to wrap it off in Milwaukee on the final 3. And so I see 3 teams that are out of the playoffs right now. I see 2.5 teams out of the playoffs and 2.5 teams still in the hunt. As a matter of fact, the Cubs, Milwaukee, they're kind of comfortable. I'm not worried about the Cubs or the Milwaukee. Here's my concern with the Reds. We know the struggle that they have against their division. And now their final 2-3 weeks of the season becomes with a limited room of error. You look at a team like Athletics or like the Pirates, who are not going to make it to the postseason this year. Maybe they're fighting for some pride. Maybe they want to finish off the season strong. I'm sure they want to kind of play some spoiler or some ruins, especially the Pirates, right? They don't want the Reds to make a wild card spot. I personally think it's good for the division. In an NL Central division that has been overlooked in competition, not to have one, not two, but three wild card spots representing the division heading into the postseason. But those teams would like to damper a Reds season. And if we drop a series to the Athletics or even home to the Pirates, that will definitely do the trick. My biggest concern for the Reds is going to be St. Louis. They're kind of on that verge of kind of a, you know what, you're just right there. A bad series could get you out, but yet again, a good series could replace you. Just imagine heading into St. Louis next week. 3 against the Cardinals. You're about a game or two away, and they take the series and they replace you in a wild card hunt. That's a damper on the season for sure. I'm looking at the Cubs in Milwaukee, and those two have comfortable positions. I think they're going to be locking up a playoff spot here at some point. I don't think that the Cubs are there. I think they're far away. So Milwaukee looks like they have the division. Chicago looks like they have a wild card spot. I guess my concern is if you're Milwaukee, you're going to get that wild card spot on a bye, so you're not playing to the weekend. So you are playing your starters the final 3 games of the season. It's at home. Finish off the week strong. You have a couple days to relax and recoup. If you're Chicago, if you lock up a deal, we may have ourselves an opportunity. We play a little bit better against Chicago in recent years. And like I said, if they could lock up a playoff spot by the end of this weekend or by the time we see them next week, well, they may be looking to rest a lot of their guys, maybe not take a big emphasis because the Padres are separating themselves from the Cubs. And they're looking to maybe, hey, we know we have to play Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in a week. Let's kind of ease our way in. This is our opportunity to shine. No matter what we do, we're not replacing the Cubs in the playoffs. So our schedule looks pretty, it doesn't look like it's a walk through the park. I mean, you jump over to the Mets side, who we're competing against. They have a Phillies tonight. The home to the Rangers, and if you talk anything about the Rangers are currently a game and a half behind Seattle in the final wildcard spot. In the American League, we have Detroit, Toronto, Houston. The Yankees hold 2.5 games above the wild card along with the Boston Red Sox. Seattle holds that 3rd spot. Texas, a game and a half. Cleveland's 3.5 games. And Kansas City's 4 games. Texas is on a 7-3 win, over the last 10. Seattle's on a 6-4. They're both on winning streaks right now. Houston is fighting for, they're still holding on to the division. There's enough going on for the American League. Houston is a game above Seattle in the AL West. The Rangers are 2.5 games behind Houston. With 5 series left, that's enough for something to happen. In the American League East, Toronto, the Yankees and Red Sox are 3 games back. And as we just talked about the Reds and the Padres moments ago, this is another series that a series win can do a lot of good. So you can anticipate the Yankees and Red Sox this weekend being a playoff game. But with the Rangers on the outside looking in, game in the back and a half of the wild card, the Mets have 3 games there. Then they got to play the Padres, which can work in our favor. But I'm seeing those games because then you have 3 games against Washington, 3 games against the Cubs, and we already explained where the Cubs may be at by that time. and then 3 games against the Marlins. And we've already talked about this with the NL Central. Same goes with the NL East. Nationals, Marlins, not in the playoffs, but they're looking to help. Hey, let's cost the Mets from going to the postseason. That would be sweet. I think it starts tonight with the Phillies beating the Mets. That's what we're looking for. Mets are on the road before they come back home, and I think, they have a nice, good home stretch, but 6 of those 9 games are not going to be rolled over. We'll look at the Padres schedule, too. They got a 4-game series against the Rockies. They took the series back at Coors Field last weekend. I expect them to take 2 of 3 at least. Then they got the Mets in a 3-game series next week, and then they go to Chicago to face the White Sox. And this time of year, it may not always be pleasant to play in Chicago. September, getting colder, right? But then they play Milwaukee, and then they finish up against Arizona. So my concern is, and I feel like the Padres have more of a leverage to, hey, we could play 500 baseball. We'll be set for the postseason. Milwaukee, like I said, back into that league, that division, or that schedule, and they're looking for, hey, we may want to rest our guys. Or like I said, there's reasons why teams that aren't making the postseason, why they shouldn't just roll over, right? They got to prepare for next year, see what they have, see what they don't have. But, look, Chicago's 5.5 games back of Milwaukee. San Diego's 3 games back of the Dodgers. And every series, every pitch, every inning, every out counts now. There's no room to fall over. And no, the Reds don't play a really tough schedule here in this final stretch, but they play their own division, and we know what that comes of. I would love, them to go on the road and finish off Athletics and take 4 of 6 between the Athletics and the Cardinals. And then you come over, you take 4 of 3 at least, if not 5 of 2, against the home stands. It's this I'm not trying, I don't want to jump the gun here, but this is why we get excited, that hope, right? Because the Reds have been here before. They've been here recently before. They have came in a few years ago, and they've stretched out a tough battle, but, it's one thing to get to the playoffs. It's another thing to play the playoffs. And I got to say, you got to remain open-minded and a possibility chance that they still may not make it in. They beat the Padres 2 out of 3. Great. That's 1 game down. This weekend is all we could focus on. They'll be in against the Athletics in a 3-game series. The Mets will be home to Texas, and the Padres will be home to the Rockies. So, I'm just saying, anything can and will happen. All right, so let's go ahead and get into our predictions of the NFL today for week number 2. Week number 1, there was a couple games I lost. First game was the Kansas City Chiefs game back on last Friday. Chargers beat the Chiefs 27-21. And this game could have been a coin flip between these two. I just believed that the Chiefs would have they played better, and they just got off to a slow start of the game. They just were never able to catch up. Aaron Rodgers picked up his first victory as a Steelers against his former team in the New York Jets. So that was fun to watch. I'm glad I went with the Raiders over the Patriots. I lost the Colts game, chose Miami. And then let me see what other games I lost here. I also lost Seattle 17-13 against the 49ers. And that was it. So I didn't do too bad. Out of 16 games, I've only won 13, so I lost 3. I could select that as a win. What I found interesting was that, we sit here and we talk. about predictions, about our thoughts, about how a team should be, how they could be. But reality is, you just don't know until they get out there and play week one. The worst team in the NFL could be your best team in this during the season. Look, for example, I think there was a lot of conversations I listened to that I agreed upon that Seattle was going to go in and beat the 49ers. It's home field advantage. They got, Sam Donald as quarterback. The 49ers, they look iffy, dealing with the Brock Purdy injury, and whatnot. And you just kind of question, what type of team they're going to put out there on the field. But they're able to muster up a win last week. What other team? I'm not ready to. Maybe I jumped the gun into buying into the Indianapolis Colts and Daniel Jones scenario, but I feel like the Miami Dolphins could be one of those dark horses in the NFL, kind of being on the outskirts, sneaking its way in, and making a surprise run this year, especially with everything else that's moving along in the league. So, I don't. I mean, as much as I want to sit here and be perfect, week one proves to you that I'm just not perfect. As we get to week two, let me just run through my predictions here. So I was 13-16 out of 16 games. I feel like that pretty good is pretty good, losing 2 to 3 a week. I don't think we get a clear idea of what a team is capable of in the first 3 to 4 weeks of the season. Afterwards, it becomes more of a matchup personnel as well. But we got Washington Commanders taking on the Green Bay Packers. Washington beat the Giants 21-6. The Packers also beat the Detroit Lions, though. Game of the week, 27-13. When you look at these two comparisons here on a Thursday Night Football, listen, I don't want to count out Washington, but there was just a way Green Bay played last Sunday that just took my attention. They played with aggressiveness. They played with the demand, with the intensity that they want to be here. And not all 32 teams have this same vibe when you watch them play offensively or defensively. And I was just watching. I'm like, man, yeah, I know they picked up man, what was that guy? I can't even think right now. Let me see if I could come up with the name. Michael Parsons, right? And I just think that it's just elevated who they are as a unit, who they are as a team. That even though we could talk about maybe a banged up Jordan Love, not to worry about anything, right? So they're back at Lambeau Field. They're playing Thursday Night Football. I got to select the Green Bay Packers to win, which dampers. But I think credit is going to be what credit gives, because Washington's one of those middle teams, already talking about possibly a wild card looking in. A team like the Giants, yes, you win, you humiliate, you go in there with ease, you build confidence off of that. And so that confidence can make this an interesting game. But as far as completing the game, and I'm not saying that Washington is not as aggressive, but I'm saying it's completing the game. I feel like the Packers have the best overall run. We head to Sunday, and here's just right down that list. Bengals host the Jaguars at 1:00. I think this is when you talk about, like I said, we talk about games that you should win. This is another one. Jacksonville, yes, picked up a game over Carolina, but my only concern is that this is the same team that was put out there last week, and they don't get the ball going. They don't establish that run game. They don't get points in the second half. then my question is how long can that defense last? I still do have the Bengals winning, but we talk about playing it's week by week, but we talk it all week long. Hey, we've learned from week one. We're gonna get better and get ready for week two. I'm gonna give this a little bit more time to weigh on, but I have a little bone to pick with Joe Burrow. And I'm sorry to say this. I love Joe Burrow. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he's one of the top 5 elites in the league. But Joe Burrow in these press conferences, he seems like he's not there. He doesn't seem to have and I get it. Some players are really reserved. They don't want to say the wrong thing. They don't want to stir up a rumor that's, they can't confirm or deny. And I get that. But Joe Burrow has very little emotions or very little emphasis when it comes down to speaking to the press and having these press. He's just kind of nonchalantly just there. He's, all right, I'll answer a question. Yeah. I mean, he's not really making direct eye contact. He's like, he's there. It feels like he's there because has to. And if this is a mentality because, hey, I'd rather just leave it on the field, then by all means, I'm for it. There's nothing necessarily wrong with it. It makes it difficult for me to watch him a little bit. I'm not really. You kind of watch him. Okay, so it's one of those things because the coaches are notorious for doing this, but it's one of those things where you just know this behind the curtain exposure that you're not going to get with him. He will talk about just how like a coach, just like how a manager. He does a press conference and he only gives out limited information and he's going to kind of answer the question, but stir off a little bit or answer the question with another question or keep a vague statement of something that we already know when it's like, they know more answers, but they're not going to give you anything. So it kind of reminds me of Joe Burrow. There is a term to it that I don't know the name of it, but Joe Burrow just doesn't really, you cannot get anything out of him. I was watching the press conference earlier this week, both of them earlier this week, and there's just nothing. Hey, we go back to the tapes and we learn, and we're gonna learn from what we do, and from our mistakes, and just be better. We got to play better. What information that gives you? Because I could have told you in a nutshell they had to play better. Doesn't only give you a whole lot to work with. But I got the Bengals winning. I got the Rams over the Tennessee Titans. It's an early 1:00 game. Rams on the road. Baltimore and Cleveland. This is going to be a division game. Joe Flacco back in Baltimore. And I think that I feel pretty good about the Ravens. I know they came off a loss, but they played a really good team against the Bills. And the Ravens are one of those teams where you're not worried about each and every game. I'm not worried if the Ravens don't beat the Bills. I mean, it's good for us because now they're 0-1 heading into this division, right? Standing wise, it looks good. But overall in the NFL, the Ravens are one of the teams that you're like, if they just don't win, it's okay. They're going to go on to the next one and beat the bigger, tougher games. They've beaten tough games in the past. And they, maybe 9 out of the 10 times, maybe, I don't know, 6, 7 out of the 10 times they could probably beat the Bills. But I feel like they will pick up their first victory at home in front of their home crowd. Cowboys back at home. I feel like the Cowboys need that. They need this win. They played very aggressive with the Eagles. I feel like although they lost Michael Parsons, they want to prove that they can still compete at that highest level against their opponents without him. Hey, this doesn't phase us. I think Jerry Jones and the Cowboys are wanting to say, hey, this, even though we got rid of Michael Parsons, he didn't affect our team. We're still a good team. We're still a playoff team, and you're going up against the Giants, and so I just think the Cowboys will win. I got the Lions over the Bears, another division rival game. I know last week's score didn't show it, but it was a tough battle. I mean, whenever you go into Lambeau Field, that's something that the Bengals are going to go to Lambeau Field. I want to be nowhere near that game when that takes place. I'm petrified. If there's any team that could scare you going up against, and the maybe the way that they play, the intimidation tactics, man, Green Bay is one of them. Detroit picks up the win over the Bears, I believe. I got the Dolphins beating the Patriots, 1:00. 49ers beating the Saints as well. The Bills continue their run, go 2-0 against the Jets. And Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers pick up a win over the Seattle Seahawks as well. A stumper that really probably doesn't deserve a lot of question. I think it's going to be kind of that dark horse game this week. Arizona and Carolina. I think for these two cities, it's just another game, but I got Arizona picking up a win. Denver, I think they put themselves on the win column this week. I feel like they could beat, I know they lost last week. Indianapolis won. I know Denver's on the road, but I feel like the Broncos could beat the Colts. And then we got the Eagles and the Chiefs, the game. I think it's the Sunday game of the week. Super Bowl rematch. The intensity is high on both of them. I chose the Eagles, but this can honestly go a coin flip on both ends. Then we got the Sunday night football game and the Vikings and Falcons. We got the Vikings picking up a win at home. Then we got two games on Monday night. The first one being at 7:00 between the Buccaneers taking on the Texans at NRG Stadium. Then the second one's going to be at 10 p.m., a late night game for those on the East Coast, the Chargers and the Raiders. Man, I got the Buccaneers going on this one here at 7:00 in game one. And then I got the Chargers going on game two. I got to give credit where credit's due. The Chargers, they picked up their victory against the Chiefs. I think you go out and, this is what leads to a good game, right? You got Pete Carroll on one side. You got Geno Smith on one side. You got Allegiant Stadium on one side. And you got Las Vegas on one side. On the other side, you got the Chargers who just got done beating the Chiefs. You got Jim Harbaugh. You got Justin Herbert. And look, you throw in a primetime game, and it is what it is, and you're going to get the best of the best. I think out of those two games, the Chargers and the Raiders are going to be the better game out of those two. Now, I'm excited for it. Bring it on, because if the Chargers could start the season off 2-0, but one of these teams are going to start off 2-0. I've unfortunately seen too many mistakes, poor management skills, that I hope that veteran managers like Pete Carroll and like Jim Harbaugh can learn. When it comes down to calling timeouts, clock management. For some reason, whenever the Chargers and Raiders meet up, it just seems like they just don't know what they're doing half the time, at least on the coaching staff. Listen, this is, the Raiders. Here's where the momentum lies. And this could be a coin flip, but I got the Chargers on this one. They played spoiler to the Chiefs. I think they could do it again against the Raiders on Monday night. But the coin flip here is because Raiders picked up the win in New England. It's the first home game of the season, and they have, it's a primetime game. So it could really work both ways. All right, last but not least, games that I was kind of paying attention to, I was looking at this weekend. We know Cincinnati is back at home, taking on Northwestern State. Both teams are 1-1. Kick us off at 3:30. We also have Ohio taking on Ohio State. Ohio State is 2-0. Ohio's 1-1. Kickoff is at 7. I really think that, and then at 7:30, we have the 1-1 Kentucky taking on the 0-2 Eastern Michigan. I like all these matchups. I feel like they should all be pretty close wins. Maybe Ohio is going to be more of a walk-away win early on. Um, but good competition and good, hey, let's bounce back and pick up a victory in both of these. Um, Cincinnati is coming off of a win, so they can kind of just keep that momentum going. I was looking at the top 25 games in NCAA football this weekend, and I think the NCAA football kind of times it up just right. I know we're just kind of embrace of all the football season going on. They had that really good lineup card a couple weeks ago on week 1 with Ohio State and Texas, but kind of mellowed out here. But here's your top 25 that I'm kind of keeping an eye on this weekend. They're all top 25 versus top 25. The first one's at 3:30. You got number 6 Georgia taking on number 15 Tennessee. They're both 2-0 on the record, and I think it's lined up to be a good one. 4:30 p.m. You got University of South Florida taking on Miami. Ranked number 18 South Florida takes on number 5 Miami, both 2-0 on the year. And then at 7:30 we have number 16 Texas A&M taking on number 8 Notre Dame, who is 0-1. Out of this list here, Notre Dame's only 0-1, only played 1 game so far. I've always questioned how the AP polling and ranking in NCAA football comes together, because I feel like you could be an undefeated team, you could be James Madison, be undefeated throughout the year, and still not rank in the top 10 or top 25, nonetheless. And when you have a team like Tennessee, who is 2-0, and they're ranked number 15 over Notre Dame, who is 0-1, it's just scratching my head. I've always had an issue with this. It's the same thing that falls into college basketball. It's one of the reasons why I don't really get too involved into college sports, especially in analyzing and breaking down. Yeah, I'm not intimidated by it. I'm not a big fan of it. It is very intimidating. It is very judgmental, very criticizing, and very opinionated. And there's really no formula in my books that I have yet to see on where all these stuff comes from. And when you have college football playoffs growing and your conferences are changing all the time right now, and we're kind of adapting after so many years, I mean, I feel like these rankings need to also adapt and change as well. And I think a lot of people focus on the rankings than the standings, because there's been times where I've seen undefeated teams that just don't qualify or don't make it for these playoffs or bowl games. All right, so in baseball, a couple of series that I'm paying attention to, and I'll explain here. Obviously, we have this playoff race, right? The Reds over in the Athletics 3-game series. We have the Rockies and Padres tonight, beginning a 4-game series. And then, yes, we have the wrap-up on a 4-game series. The Phillies have a chance to sweep the Mets at 7:15 tonight. I'd suggest tuning into that. But then the Rangers come into town to face on the Mets at Citi Field in a 3-game series from there. Other games are kind of, if you're kind of like, hey, I want to step away, maybe just come back over the next week and look at how this playoff run is. A couple other games here to kind of tune into. Angels over Seattle as they're fighting for a wild card spot. Houston and Atlanta as well. And then the Yankees or Red Sox. I'm circling Yankees or Red Sox. I'm going to put my bottom dollar down. I think that's Sunday night baseball. And that's going to probably be your big series that takes the most attention in Major League Baseball over the weekend. So got a handful of selected games, but those are the ones I'm paying attention to. And in the NFL, we also obviously have the Jaguars and Bengals. I'm going to be tuning into the Browns and the Ravens, because I would love to see the Bengals to start off 2-0, right? A little bit of bias of opinion here. Bengals start off 2-0. Ravens start off 0-2 if the Bengals could win. I'm more feared of the Ravens having their first win than the Browns having their first win. So I want the Ravens to win. or I want the Ravens to lose. I want the Browns to win. I'm going to root for the Browns. This is the only time whenever they're facing the Ravens or the Steelers, I'm going to root for the Browns in picking up victories. And I think Joe Flacco will love nothing more but to go up, up to or down to Baltimore and show his old team that he can still do it. Maybe we see Shador Sanders. I don't know. But I'm tuning into that one. That's also a 1:00 game. Another 1:00 game is going to be the Seahawks and Steelers division game. You know, uh, Aaron Rodgers, confident maybe. I have the confidence in Aaron Rodgers starting off 2-0. I don't know. I'm not. See, I want the Browns to beat the Ravens because in competition, I feel like the Bengals have a better position over the Browns. We obviously already have a win on them this year. We won't see them until the end of the year, anyways. And then the next team I deal with is the Steelers because I feel like we're evenly matched. And then the Ravens. Those are kind of like my criteria. And I think the game of the week here, it's going to be the Eagles and Chiefs, 425. I'd tune into that one. Super Bowl rematch. A lot of expectations on that one. I don't know how it's going to turn out. Like I said, I do have the Eagles winning that game. But, this is another thing that no matter who loses, I mean, Eagles are 1-0. The Chiefs are 0-1. They're about the same amount of time since they've last played. The Chiefs are coming back into the States from leaving from the country for the Brazil game. The Eagles just moved down to Arrowhead. I mean, I feel like this is fairly easy, but are you really phased? How much of a loss does this really do to either team? And even a Chiefs team that is 0-2. Now, I would argue maybe if the Chargers, if the Chiefs are 0-2 and the Chargers are 2-0, or the Raiders are 2-0, I still wouldn't hit the panic button. I don't know about that, right? What do you guys think? But yeah, those are the games I have on the docket to pay attention to. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. So leave your comment down below in our comment section on our YouTube channel. Who do you guys think is going to win? What games are you guys looking out for? Maybe I'll even share them on my next episode. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. You guys could go ahead and play the picks with me if you guys would like. I will come back next week and share how many games I got correct and how many games I got wrong. I'm looking forward to another fantastic weekend of sports, not just in the real world, but in our video game portion of our channel. So I appreciate for all you guys are out there looking and watching and supporting our content. Be sure to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Have those notifications on, man. And can't wait to get back at it next week. We'll talk some football, some baseball, see where the Reds are at, and we'll also get ready for Russellpalooza. I mean, it's been almost 10 years since we've seen John Cena, Brock Lesnar go at it again. John Cena's is about to retire. He has a limited number of shows. Does he get over? Does he need to get over? This is a sticky conversation that we're going to put on the docket for next week. So we'll definitely talk about that, as well as what AJ Lee officially challenged Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch to a mixed gender tag match. I'm assuming decided. I'm going to be interested to see, and we'll talk about this next week. But I had that Hulu, Disney, ESPN app, and according to what I'm reading and what I'm looking at, looks like I get it because I have that 3-in-1 bundle. But only time will tell. So let me know if you guys have any more information leading towards that. But that is all the time we have on our show. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, you guys enjoy your wonderful weekend. Go Cincinnati Sports, and we'll come back next week, talk more. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take care.